Hello, welcome to another thrilling episode of Investigators in Cars Drinking Coffee. I'm your host, Mark Mernan, president of Complete Legal Investigations, and I'm joined once again by my fabulous co-host, partner, spouse par excellence,
Keep going.
Wendy Strom Mernan.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
You're a regular.
Well, I'm just glad to be back.
I'm glad you're
always
back
welcome.
too. Always glad to be here. She's always welcome and always glad to be here.
Yes.
People understand that.
Okay.
Anyway, welcome to Investigators in Cars Drinking Coffee. We've already done this part here. It's like our fifth take over here. We're just having all kinds of technical issues.
I think we just need to go for it.
Go for it here.
Okay.
So, anyway, well, Wendy, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
Good.
Am.
I'm ready for a little coffee here.
Yes.
So we are here talking today, actually about a pretty serious subject.
Very serious
subject, and this is the private investigator and death penalty cases, or death penalty cases and the private investigator.
Yes, and the mitigation specialist.
Which is incorporated as part of the investigative
I spilled
task.
my coffee.
It's been quite the morning, so we are here.
Sticky hands.
Sticky hand, warm heart. But we're here talking about the death penalty and the role that private investigators contribute to, particularly in criminal defense cases, capital murder cases involving the most extreme penalty, which is the death penalty, cases which are always very serious, literally life and death. A subject or subjects have already been the victims of a homicide. A defendant has been charged with a capital felony, is facing the death penalty, and even in this era where there are fewer of them, people are still being sentenced to death. So,
yes.
what
and
role?
This isn't your normal homicide.
No, this is not. There are aspects of a death penalty case which are unique. There are real challenges in conducting these investigations. And so we thought we'd talk a little bit about that as private investigators, how we interact and work with the attorneys who are appointed to represent the defendant, with the defendant himself or herself, and with the family members of the defendant.
Right.
And so there are two aspects of criminal defense investigations. There is the factual, or what we call the guilt phase of the trial of the case. That would be mostly in my jurisdiction, where we spend literally months, sometimes years. These cases go on.
Oh yeah.
I think the shortest we've ever done one is 2 years,
right.
3 years. Go on for 8 to 10 years sometimes, but average 3 to 5 years to get a death penalty case to trial. The guilt phase has to do with whether or not the defendant is actually guilty as charged, or perhaps guilty of a lesser charge. Should the defendant be found guilty, and even before the conviction, the mitigation specialist is working on the mitigation investigation, what we call phase 2, or the penalty phase.
Correct.
So if you're a private investigator, you're probably familiar with what happens in the guilt phase. You may not be as familiar as what happens in the penalty phase, which is why Wendy has really made a specialty as mitigation investigations on behalf of the defense to argue for a lesser penalty, which is typically life in prison.
Right, mitigate the sentence, hopefully something other than death. That's the goal.
So what are some of the things that you're looking for in a mitigation investigation?
Right. Well, I basically do a social background. That's the first thing we do on the defendant. We're trying to find out, where he came from, how he grew up, possibly things he's been through or have happened to him, anything that would have caused, to make him go the wrong direction. Not that we think, he's justified what he did, but, possibly something mitigated, his life along the way. So social background includes, ordering all his school records, medical records, speaking to him, of course. And then the family becomes imperative.
Absolutely.
The family makes or breaks it, because they're the ones that know the defendant, how he, what he's been through. Did he have a head injury? Anything that possibly could have made him go bad. And so, this last one, we just finished one up, and the family was key. And that is not always the case.
Yeah.
This was just a phenomenal family to work with, and who truly loved the defendant. They loved their son, their brother, their, nephew. So it was,
Yeah.
so I did, it's a very, it's more subjective than objective, like the investigation, which, that fits me a little better. I think women do a really good job at mitigation specialties because they, we do have an intuition about people. People will talk to us. So I
There's an
enjoy
empathy.
it.
There's an
Yeah,
empathy,
there's
I
an
think, which
empathy
is
there that, some people think, maybe I'm too empathetic, but it's just, that's my job,
Yeah.
So someone has to be empathetic in this completely mixed up, terrible situation.
It was interesting because it was not just your empathy, but it was also your research skills,
Right.
your interviewing skills. All the whole spectrum of investigative technique was applied to the mitigation investigation because you had to receive, you had to submit records requests from physicians, school boards,
Employers.
and prior attorneys,
Right.
prison records because he'd been to prison before.
Right.
There were medical records that we had to be obtained, hospitalization records.
Right. And then there was a competency question for this particular defendant. So he was evaluated many times and treated, and so this one really went on. So I would have to, keep up with those records and get him to the lawyers and find out what he's doing in jail while he was currently incarcerated. So yeah, this one was very intense.
And it wasn't you didn't merely have to concentrate, you also had to incorporate aspects of the guilt phase. So you were involved in the guilt phase insofar as how it impacted the mitigation.
Correct. Yeah. I really do have to know what all the facts are, just as if I were the investigator, because everything makes a difference. Everything. So yeah.
The circumstances of the offense are one of you have aggravating factors and mitigating factors.
Right.
What would be an aggravating factor?
Sometimes mental health is an aggravating factor.
Mitigating.
Oh, mitigating. Aggravating factor. What are they?
Hack. Heinous,
yes,
atrocious,
heinous and atrocious,
and
yes,
cruel,
and cruel, yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that gets you here. Prior criminal history is a factor.
Yes.
So there are aggravators.
Prior arrests,
prior
exactly.
arrests, so
prior violent acts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything.
So these are all aggravators, and against those you have mitigators such as mental health,
right,
IQ. Are there social aspects of the client's background that may mitigate against?
Right, family background. Right.
History of abuse, things like that.
Right.
So, and they don't always go as planned.
No, they don't.
So there are actually 2 trials, aren't there?
There are 2 trials, and we have never done the 2 trials.
Fortunately, this was
because normally the defendant will take a plea and take life, but this defendant would not, and so we actually did 2 trials on this, and it was intense.
And the first trial was the guilt phase.
Yes.
Which involved bringing all the witnesses to the factual basis of the offense, and then the second trial was the penalty phase. Both of them were extremely dramatic.
Yes.
Very intense. A grief to both the family of the victim and the family of the defendant. It was a tremendous amount of drama.
It really was, and we brought in 20 witnesses for the second phase because this family was so supportive.
Yeah.
And then we brought in his high school coach, we brought in a teacher, and these people, they don't want to be involved unless they're family, and even some of the family doesn't want to be involved.
Yeah.
So you have to really, I had to learn how to work with people from where they were coming from. I had to learn to be a little stern when necessary, you're under subpoena. So it was really an education for me to finally go through this whole, aspect of a death penalty case. And he did get the death penalty.
So
and that's
we're working on some appeal issues.
Yes.
But it was the ultimate penalty for the ultimate crime. Again, it was there were other factors that contributed, I think, to not just the conviction, but the penalty itself, which were outside of our control, and not everything works out as planned. But just the tremendous amount of work that you did with the family was a remarkable accomplishment.
And nobody is a winner in these cases. No. Everybody's a loser. It's just so sad. I mean, we had victim, 2 deceased victims. People. I mean, and then the mother of the defendant, she's basically lost her son, and so it's intense.
It is.
If you like drama.
Yeah. But if you have the investigative skills and you are looking to perhaps explore a fascinating and drama-filled aspect of private investigations, and you are familiar with, to some degree, with the criminal justice system, then perhaps this is an avenue to pursue. Mitigation work is demanding. It requires a special set of skills, a special set of training. There are conferences, life and death conferences in each of the states, but definitely worth pursuing if you have an interest. They are cases that go on for months and months, sometimes years. So there's a never-ending amount of work that can be done and billed.
They're indigent cases,
indigent
so
for costs,
we are paid
court-appointed.
by the state, and the JAC who pays us, they pay almost
Florida.
double per hour.
In Florida, they pay
in
almost
Florida
double per hour
for a
the
mitigation specialist. So they can be,
But it comes at a cost.
Well, it does.
Yeah, it's just
Everything
more
does.
difficult work. So
Everything does.
You earn your
Yeah,
money.
Yeah.
Anyway, we just thought we'd share a kind of a different aspect of criminal investigations. But if you have an interest in that, certainly pursue it through the local criminal justice bar. If you're already doing criminal defense work, speak with your lawyers. There's a certain group of lawyers who specialize in death penalty cases.
Yes.
And availing yourself of their expertise and perhaps getting an assignment from them would be a great step in the right direction for you.
Right, and you need to sign up with the JAC that you're willing to do mitigation work, and that's how a lot of lawyers will find you.
We are looking for our coasters. At the end of every episode,
They
we are
have
still
fallen to the
promoting
bottom.
bottom of the pit here. Get your Investigators in Cars coffee coasters. If you're a new subscriber, follow us on. Why don't you hit the subscribe button down below? Copy us with your mailing address. We'll stick a couple of these in the mail to you
Right, and
as
the
well.
first subscriber, I have some really nice coffee mugs. I'll send you a mug for the
Do you
first
really?
new subscriber.
Oh, we've got coffee mugs with our label on
After
it.
we release the video, we'll send you a really nice mug.
You got that. So sign up down there. Ask for one of our Investigator in Car mugs. You don't want to miss those. Just don't put them in the dishwasher.
Yeah. No one said it was high quality.
This is our beta branch.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. Anyway, from the Investigators in Cars, Mark and Wendy Mernan of Complete Legal Investigations, we wish you and yours a great weekend. I know we post these on Thursday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you the next time on Investigators in Cars Drinking Coffee.
Bye-bye now.